This is the LoinersView podcast.
This is the LoinersView podcast.
This is the LoinersView podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's LoinersView. I'm your host Laurie and with me we have brilliant guests and also our regulars. We have Mr. Chris Patrick.
Evening, lads. You all right?
And not so bad, we have Mr. Johnny Orwell.
How's it going, lads?
Not bad, my friend. Right, this week's guest, you'll know his voice, but you might not know him. He is the legend that is voice at Headingley and numerous Rugby League events all over the country and the internationals, Mr. Pete Nuttall. Pete, how are you doing, my friend? You all right?
Very good, thank you. No, not too bad. Cannot wait for Rugby League to restart.
Well, that's a very good point. And I'm going to say, how much are you missing it?
A lot. Through lockdown, I find myself doing team readouts to washing your hands. You know, like government's washing your hands. I've read out the TV listings and all sorts. So, yeah, I am missing it a lot. Not half as much as my missus and kids are missing me buggering off to work.
Well, that's not a bad point. I mean, I bet that's caused them all sorts of chaos. Right, this is going to... Well, I must admit, I'm not going to lie on this show. Sometimes we've had guests on and I've not done... thought of questions to ask them. You have suddenly sprung up a load of questions. So we'll get them dealt right now. Which Rugby League player has caused you most torment in announcing on a Rugby League pitch?
Arva Seomanufani.
That's good. Do you want to say that just one more time?
When he's fined, I was hoping we could get away with calling him Big Dave. Would have been perfect. But no, Arva Seomanufani, that took a couple of run-ups.
Is it not, though, Arva Siamanafangai? Is it not like a silent G?
It's Fanai, the G is silent, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. Have you had any of those moments where you've been stood on the pitch and just realised that you've completely said the wrong person's name and totally said it wrong?
Yes. 100%. I mean, I'm not going to be correct all the time. And the worst thing is when a try is scored, because I usually watch the game from in between the dugouts, at the North Stand. And thousands of people on the South Stand. If somebody scores in that southwest corner, I've no idea who it is because my eyes are at pitch level. So I'm usually asking the players, who the hell was that? And normally have a guess at whoever the left wing is. But we can't see. Everyone in the South Stand knows. And if I announce a player who's not the try scorer, everyone knows I'm wrong. So everyone's pointing the finger, laughing, chanting, singing. It's horrible. It's a horrible.
How many times has that actually happened?
In my head, none. In the South Stand's head, quite a lot.
Which is not too bad, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
The other question I have, and it's quite this sounds really harsh, so I understand if you don't answer it fully. When it's the Children's Day at Headingley, how nervous do you get when the kids start doing your job? Do you think they're going to take over? Or do you kind of think, I hope they get it right?
Do you know what? This is something I was going to talk about because I know J is one of our letters. So I was going to go for takeover day. And honestly, it's one of my favourite days that we do at Headingley. Headingley, Leeds Rhinos do a lot right, and Junior Takeover Day is one of them. And those kids are always brilliant. They're always so much fun. They'll come along. Inevitably, they'll know a lot more about the team than I do. So they will be telling me all these stats. Oh, he hasn't scored in 3 games and all this, that and the other. And I'm like, all right, easy. But they love it. They're rarely nervous. And if they are, it's just an easy way to just sit down and say, look, all you're talking to is me. Ignore everyone over there. It's just you and me having a little chat. Make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home. And they love it because I'll find out who their favourite player is and I'll go over and introduce them to the favourite player and they'll get T-shirts signed and all this, that and the other. And it's great. It's one of my favourite days. And the kids are brilliant. And I do worry that one of these days, one of those kids is going to take my job.
That's what I was going to say. It must be so tormenting thinking, oh, I'm not going to have a job after this. But, especially those guys.
All right, mate. Stop being good.
I was going to say, though, a couple of years back, was it? One of them had a bit of trouble with Mikolaj Oledzki. That was a funny moment.
She was brilliant. I think she ended up giving him a dozen different pronunciations.
Yeah.
And we settled on Nicola Old Lady.
I bet they all love it. And let's be honest, it's one of those things of, we'll kind of gloss over it, I suppose, for them.
Exactly right. And I know it's not to everyone's taste, but it gives these kids a real taste of what it's like to work at a rugby club. Because not everyone's going to be a professional rugby player, but there are a dozen other jobs that you can do in a rugby club that are still really entertaining. You still get to work really close to the team. So we get a junior groundsman, there's a junior marketing director, somebody goes and works at the ticket office. Someone has to follow Gary Hetherington around all day, so you got to feel for that kid. Junior referee, and the referees are always brilliant, always take time for the kids. It's brilliant, but of course, junior PA announcer is the best job.
I'm going to say, and when the game is on, do you find yourself like almost commentating to yourself just by trying to work out who's going to score? You know, especially with the microphone in your hand, it must be very tempting to get into that.
Well, it's two different disciplines, the announcing and the commentating. Like I know a mutual friend of ours, Matt Horton, who's been a guest on the podcast before. He's a commentator and an announcer, and the commentating is a real skill. I've tried it once and I was awful. The announcing, you know, once a try scored, I've got 20 seconds of the South Stand band playing music before I need to, during that time I can work out who the hell scored that try. So it's... with a commentary thing, you've got to be on it all the time. But I am in my head constantly thinking, right, 4's got the ball. He's passed it out to 13. 13's got the ball. He's just done a grubber kick through. Who's going to dive on it 6? That kind of thing. So there is that going on in my head all the time. So it does make following a game quite interesting.
It's true, though. I used to do a bit of analyst work for Mick Liddell, the Bradford Bulls, when he was first getting started.
Yeah.
And a few times, I mean, he's a very good talker on the microphone. And I tried a couple of times just taking over from him. And it's such a difficult job to actually do the actual, you know, play-to-play commentary, and it's totally different to anything else.
It really is.
You got to have a gift to make things flow so well, and it's kind of like it's working non-stop in your head.
And you've got to identify the players on site, which is really, really tricky skill, and also know the laws. So I'd be screwed.
I think most of the fans would be, let's be honest.
Yeah,
right,
true.
Right, so we'll just go into a few bits from this week. It seems Rugby League is kind of in I don't know how to say it, a bit of a really odd, almost black hole. We don't quite know what's going on with fixtures, promotion and relegation. Gentlemen, this week, it almost seems like we don't know, well, quite literally, we don't know what's going on. What's your thoughts on this week so far? Who wants to go first?
I mean, there's been a few things. The promotion and relegation, for a start. There's a lot of talk about relegation being scrapped. I mean, is that definite now, or is it something that's still...
It's still up in the air, apparently.
Personally, I think that they should scrap it. I mean, I get the point of view of the people who don't like Toronto in the league, but at the same time, it's an unfair disadvantage that they won't get to play any games back in Canada this year. So you can't let them come in the league. Whether it's their own fault or not, they've got a squad that's probably not quite Super League standard yet, and then to not have that home advantage to give them that last bit of a chance to do something, if you're taking that away from them, you can't really have relegation in my eyes.
I think you've also got to look at financially the impact as well on relegation for Toronto. I just feel now's not the time to have the talk of relegation. I mean, it'd be quite interesting the other way around as well. We've talked about it previously with the championship and promotion. So you think, well, if there's not going to be any promotion from the championship, is there really going to be much point in the championship and League One teams playing? Yeah, because I mean, it's such a high risk right now. There's going to be players out there that either financially are better off staying at home or working other jobs elsewhere, and there is that risk element as well. So you think, well, if there's no sporting reward at the end of it, they're playing for the love of the game, you feel like, well, why don't you just knock it on the head until 2021?
I'm inclined to agree. I probably shouldn't have an opinion because I do a lot of work with Super League and the Rugby Football League, and normally I'm all in favour of promotion and relegation. You've got to give those teams in the championship something to play for and a reward at the end of that, and you've got to have a bit of jeopardy at the bottom of Super League as well for the teams that are going down. I know livelihoods are on the line and players' incomes and all sorts, but on the flip side of that coin is those players that come up to Super League. So normally I'm all in favour of promotion relegation. I think that's the essence of sport. But this season, with all the disruption we've got, I think it would be very harsh on whatever team does go down, because this may not be the only disruption we get. all you need is a player to test positive, and then that team's out for a fortnight while everyone self-isolates. We could get this much talked about second wave that will be further disruption to the season. There's no guarantees we will complete a full season this year. So what we will have is glorified friendlies, and I just, whatever format it takes, even if it is glorified friendlies, I'd be delighted to get Rugby League back and see some live Rugby League. But I think to have promotion and relegation this season, I'd argue for giving it a rest this year.
Well, to me, it sounds like they might have already decided, because I've seen today Danny Bruff has his season's over. He's having a knee clean out, so I think that you'll see quite a bit of that this year. Any players that are 100%, they'll probably send them in for surgeries, get that out of the way with, and hopefully next year you'll have a fully fit league to come back to.
Yeah,
I mean, as daft as it sounds, would you almost say try focus on next year already? I mean, you've got to think, I know we've said this quite a few times on the show, next year's quite an important year for Rugby League. You've got to have the best players and you want them fit for the World Cup, which has obviously been held over here. As daft as it sounds, would it be worthwhile looking at even having like a small season this year rather than trying to cram everything in?
Well, that's what the NRL's done, haven't they? They've cut it down from 24 to 20 weeks already, so there's been 4 fixtures cut out of that. With the rule changes, with the scrum and everything, you've had the start of the season different to the middle of the season, the end of the season, so that changes the playing field as well. Another thing I was thinking about earlier, if Leeds did go on to win it this year, would it feel a little bit cheap? You know, in the circumstances and the situation, knowing that all teams probably aren't going full out at it because they're resting players or giving them mid-season surgeries, would it feel maybe... if it got down to the nitty-gritty and we ended up playing, I don't know, say Cass in the final, and they had 3 or 4 of their players out injured because of surgery, it just wouldn't feel right, would it?
Yeah, it'd feel weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's like what Pete was saying. I just feel no matter what happens this season, I almost feel like myself, I'm already looking forward to 2021. It's almost like you get the next few months out of the way. It just feels right now like whatever Super League or Rugby League is going to be like, it's just going to be very watered down, almost like it's coming back just to provide us with a little bit of Rugby League entertainment at home. But I agree with you, John. It does feel, I mean, there's all this talk about potentially where we might be playing for the Grand Final or the Challenge Cup Final, and I feel it'd just be really strange feeling that, you know, potentially Leeds could be playing wherever, but yet, you know, we would normally be looking forward to coach trips to, say, London, Manchester, and you sit at home. You know, you can't get the games. It's just, I mean, we haven't even got a fixture list right now, have we? We're talking how many days away? 24?
It's going to be interesting, let's be honest. I think yeah. I think
another thing as well, like they're talking about the Challenge Cup. So what would happen if, it'll be interesting with the lower league teams that are in the Challenge Cup, if their seasons don't resume, then how's that going to work with them playing against, say, Super League teams?
Well, I can see Challenge Cup being scrapped this year. I mean, mainly because, like you said, when it comes to finals, where are you going to play? The special thing about the Challenge Cup is walking out Wembley. I mean, yeah, you're still going to get a bit of a feeling, even if it is at Wembley. You're going to get that bit of a feeling that, we made the final. But can you imagine walking out to an empty Wembley Stadium? How would that feel for the players? Getting there, like you said, some teams will be playing teams that probably might not even play again this season. It just makes it not a farce, but a bit of a downer, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like I don't know if you've seen any of the football. There was the Northampton in the League Two playoff final.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a Wembley win. It's a Wembley win for those lads, but maybe not tainted too much. But it's just not that high that they were probably expecting when they were youngsters. So yeah, I'd imagine it'd be the same with a Challenge Cup. It's always nice to win at Wembley, but you want that Wembley win in front of, say, 60, 70,000 fans.
Oh, definitely. And just going back to the whole league thing as well, playing Super League out is a bit different because you've got the TV side of things. I'm sure they'll come up with a way to stream games that are out on TV, whereas with the Championship League One, there's no TV. I mean, they've got a small TV backing, but there's no TV games. So you're pretty much playing for yourselves. And where does that lead you? With no end game, you know, with nothing to end it with no end result, it's pointless from their point of view.
Is there an argument for increasing what the prize pot is at the end of the season for the Championship? Because we know the massive financial gulf between Super League and the Championship.
Yeah.
I think in order to get a stronger Championship, you need to have a bit less of a gap. Otherwise, you get those yo-yo teams that come up, can't afford to stay there, can't afford to recruit properly. Is there an argument then for chucking a bit more money to this year's Championship winners in whatever format the Championship takes?
Yeah, definitely.
I actually think, and I'll say this this many a time, I think the Championship is undervalued. Let's be honest. That competition does not get enough praise or justice. I mean, yes, there is a gulf between Super League and Championship. However, the quality of rugby is still high. I mean, let's be honest, these guys are putting in more on these guys are more only part-time, aren't they, really? They're putting themselves much more on the line than some of the Super League players. No offence to the Super League players in any way. But it's almost like they do deserve a reward. And I think, especially this year, because let's be honest, who knows what state, like we said already, in a couple of months' time, what the country is going to be like. So if we do get playing, could be worth it. But then again, Championship might not even restart. We don't know.
I just couldn't see the Super League clubs letting that happen. As sad as that sounds, I can't see the clubs going, let's give them an extra however many thousand, 100,000 or whatever. I just don't think that would work out.
No, I just feel maybe this is something that, the RFL, this is something that we need to really renegotiate with Sky Sports. So when we have this new TV deal, we look at more coverage for Super League, more money coming into the sport. But obviously, we need, like you say, we need more money trickling down into lower leagues as well, more coverage for the Championship.
Well, I've said for years, I don't know why it's exclusive with Sky Sports. It's not like they show every game. There's nothing, you wouldn't lose, Sky Sports wouldn't lose anything by, say, a terrestrial TV channel taking some of the games off either league. If you're still getting the 2 or 3 games a weekend on Sky, you're still going to be getting people subscribing for Rugby League. But the difference is you'd actually get to watch a couple of games on normal TV like they do in Australia as well.
Totally.
I mean, they'll get a product out as well, won't it? Which
exactly.
we need to do, And it's a bit weird. Although I have to say, what does look a really good idea and slightly lightening the mood is what Barrow have done. I don't know if you've seen it, where on the pitch they've actually put down. They're basically going to have the largest outdoor pub in, what country is it? It's Lancashire for Barrow. Well, I'm sure somebody will try correcting me on that. But literally, it looks brilliant. It's a great idea for revenue. And let's be honest, if other clubs could try doing it, it would be such a good thing for, to get some money in, I think. I don't know. Who knows? It's an interesting area. Right. So we've had the doom and gloom of this podcast. We're going to lighten it up. We have to do, because we don't want to keep talking promotion and relegation. So we are today's show, we are going to talk about the funniest moments of Rugby League that we've seen. Now, gentlemen, we've had quite a few people sending in theirs. I'm sure you guys have all seen some. Pete, what is your favourite moment that you've seen? I mean, let's be honest, you've got to have seen some funny moments while covering games.
Quite a bit. Will you allow us nearly killing Ronnie the Rhino off the South Stand roof?
You see, right now, I was speaking to Karen, who was on the show a couple of weeks back, and she was like, "Can I suggest?" And I went, "If you suggest Ronnie the Rhino get trapped off the South Stand roof, I will be mocking you." But yeah, go on, fire away.
It was so funny. And I don't want to let lighten upon magic, but we got the army in to help us out with it. And I think his foot just slipped, didn't it? And I don't know how much the South Stand got to see of it, but I was over on the North Stand in between the dugouts, and I just saw him suddenly drop, and my heart was in my mouth, and his head nearly came off. We nearly decapitated him, and it was, once we knew he was all right, just could not stop laughing. And all of us around, the non-playing players around and all sorts, we were all just peeing ourselves. It was brilliant. It was great.
What did you say afterwards? Did anybody talk to him?
To Ronnie?
Yeah.
He won't understand.
Ronnie doesn't speak. He's a rhino.
The real rhino, Johnny. Come on.
What are you trying to suggest? I was going to say, Chris, what's been one of your funniest moments you've ever seen?
That was going to be one of them. I'm just going to mention that. I always have that image of. I remember we were back at the South Stand, and we could just about see Ronnie just stuck there, and we were just like, "What is he doing?" You could see his legs dangling. I mean, there's been all sorts. I'd probably say I was having a bit of a think about this earlier on. I think when it comes to like tense games as well. He'll probably laugh about it now, but I can't remember how many years ago, but it was the Ryan Atkins try in the corner. When he was straight through, all he had to do was literally crawl over the line, put the ball down. I think he was trying to go for the Superman dive, and at the same time he got shoved down. He went flying.
That was the Warrington season opener, wasn't it? And,
2 years ago, wasn't it? 2 seasons.
Yeah, about 2 years.
I just remember being in that stand behind the sticks and going, has he just jumped out of play? And when you look at it, his body's just absolutely sprawled everywhere. Yeah, there's a time and a place, and that certainly wasn't anything decent.
Yeah, because from what I remember, I think there were about 10 minutes to go. I think they were probably maybe like 10 points down as well.
Oh, they made a comeback, haven't they? I think it was less than that. I think they've made a comeback to the point where there was a score in it, and he's literally broke down the wing, gone for the spectacular finish, and totally blown it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like they were like, say, that there's a couple of minutes left, they're 18 points up, and he thinks, right, I'm just going to do a bit of short in here, do something spectacular. But just given the score at the time, I remember just seeing him going through like, oh, here we go, it's going to be a tense few minutes, and just seeing that happen, it was just like, I was just gobsmacked.
What is it with the Halliwell Jones as well? Because if you think about it, 2013 World Cup, Sonny Bill Williams, just about to put the ball down.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember watching that going, has he just done that? Just about to put the ball down and then realising completely out of play. I mean, for one of the greatest rugby league skilled ball handlers that we've ever had in a game to do that, it was almost me playing rugby. That's how bad it was. I mean, literally, you can't believe it.
Great. I was there for that game, working that game, and just the jeer that went up. Just everyone in the stadium was going, "Whee!" It was fantastic. It was hilarious.
You don't expect to have one of the best players in the world at the time, do you?
Do you want to give him some makeup?
Happens to the best of us. I'm involved in or I was involved in a rugby league club down here where I live, which we helped set up. And one of our players who could talk a good game, and we're talking amateur rugby league here, talk a good game. He played on the wing, really nippy, really fast. And he managed to evade a couple of tackles and charge pretty much the length of the field to ground the ball. And then he runs off, wheeling, celebrating, arm in the air and all sorts. The trouble is, he grounded the ball on the 10-metre line. So the opposition, free ball, pick it up, run back 90 yards and score against us.
It's funny you should say that. When I played it,
no.
It's funny you should say that, because when we played at school, we had like a house competition, so an in-year competition between the three houses. And we broke away in the last few minutes.
You got to Hogwarts, by the way.
I did, yeah. No, we did. Posh schools. And one of our players broke away and is away. We've won the game. It's the last few minutes. He dives to put the ball down, gets up, celebrates. Like you said, 10 metres out. We're all saying, what are you doing there? Pick it up and run 30 metres the other way, and they've got the ball. Cost us the house award, did that.
I still can't believe over the fact you called it house. I think that's amazing. I mean, that just... Anyway,
not normal?
No, I don't think it is in any way, but then it will move on, I think. That's really bizarre. Anyway, the other thing that I can think of was, I mean, if you remember the 2000 Challenge Cup final, where, I mean, admittedly, this wasn't in the game itself, but was it Tony Hadley who were doing the pre-match thing? Didn't he, in a downpour, his microphone was live, if I remember right, or something. And basically, he nearly electrocuted himself or something. I'm not sure how true that actually was, but there was quite a few folklores about that, I remember at the time.
Was that before wireless microphones, or...?
I think it might have been or something. I'm sure that we were at the start, I remember thinking, what, you'd actually do that? But, I mean, the thing is with our sport, there has been so many moments of, where you go, what? It's surprising, isn't it? I don't understand.
I'll tell you one that sticks out in my mind. It's the Anthony Gellin charge down in the World Cup Challenge a few years back, where... Corey Parker's about to kick a goal, and he just comes rushing out and charges it down. Gets 10 minutes in the bin. Brisbane versus Wigan a few years back. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Why? That was the point, wasn't it? It was just like, what?
So that's why.
You mentioned microphones there. We've had several issues where microphones have gone bust on us, because I don't just do the announcing. I work on event production for the Rugby League and Super League and all sorts. I remember one, and it was at Ellen Road. It was one of our World Club challenges, I think, against Melbourne Storm.
The bad weather one.
It was horrible. It was blowing
yes, I remember that.
It was grotty, yeah. And we had this singer that we booked to come down who was really good, really talented. And we handed her a radio mic and said, right, all you need to do is go out there, do your thing, your 2 songs, and then come off again. She went out, the music started, built to a big crescendo. She takes a big, deep breath and goes to sing, and it's nothing. She's muted her own radio mic. I don't know what she's pressed, I don't know how she's done it. So she starts doing this and nothing's coming out. And she's getting redder and redder and redder and fuming and fuming. And a manager's next to me having a go, going, turn your mic on, it is on, it is on. And next thing, she just throws the mic down onto the pitch and walks off, storms off. Back to a dressing room, so we give her 2 minutes, go along and apologise and say, sorry, technical issues, nothing we could do. They'd left, trashed the dressing room and left, gone.
Really?
I was like,
right, just so we, is this person famous or anything like that? Not like trying to dig any info, it's just quite intriguing.
That sounds like a young Mariah Carey.
Not famous, but certainly it was an interesting moment that we had to do
some research.
Yeah, we'll have to have a look at this. Yeah, somehow I'll have to have. I think I've got a program beside me. I'll have to have a look at it. I mean, that makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because if you think of how many like sporting events, well, rugby events, I should say, where there's been like people performing, how many like cock-ups and stuff there's been. I mean, didn't we have? I mean, Ollie Murs was once at Headingley, wasn't he? I don't know. I mean,
oh god, yeah, we had all sorts, didn't we? We had Ollie Murs,
girls,
we had cheeky girls.
There's an awful lot that goes on behind the scenes, and there's a famous phrase which I like to use, which is, if you like eating sausages, never get a job at the sausage factory. And it's the same with rugby league. If you love rugby league, you don't want to know what goes on behind the scenes.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can imagine. I think it'd be intriguing to say the least, and maybe
very much so, yeah.
Can I say that? So. It makes you wonder just quite how bad certain things are at certain grounds. But anyway,
and I'll tell you, Leeds are good. Leeds are one of the better clubs. Yeah.
It makes you right. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to put you under any pressure here. Well, I'll ask it today. I wonder who's the worst. Then that could be intriguing. But anyway, let's not. No. Yeah, cut your mic off. No joking. That's another point which I forgot to mention. The point of Wigan maybe trying to buy Wigan Football Club in the news this week. I actually think that would be massive for the sport. I don't know about you. I mean, I know the football fans didn't seem too impressed, but I mean, I'm not saying that this is funny, by the way. Sorry, just for clarity for anybody listening. Sorry, I just forgot to include this earlier. But Wigan, is that a good move, do you reckon?
If there's any substance to the reasons behind Wigan Athletics' current predicament, then yes, of course, it's a brilliant thing. But also, it's good for the town of Wigan. As much, whatever you think of Dave Whelan, he's really got his head screwed on, knows his stuff. So, hopefully, it's a good thing for the rugby club and the football club.
Mind you, there is a big hatred between the two sets of fans, isn't there? I mean,
true.
Wigan Warriors fans hate the Athletic fans, and vice versa, and. I always get the feeling it's not. It might be within the clubs, but from a fan point of view and outside of it, they don't seem to get on at all. It's like one or the other in that town. That's what it always comes across like.
It's always come across to me like it's because they're kind of both living under the same house. It's almost like brother and brother, like butting heads.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a weird rivalry. It's like you don't really get this with like Leeds United and Leeds Rhinos. Yeah, you get the odds. You get like say Leeds United with say Castleford Tigers fans, but I think usually you like with the city of Leeds, it's predominantly Leeds Rhinos, Leeds United.
And in fact, far sides of the city from each other, so they don't really, like you say, butt heads like those two do.
And I can neatly link this onto a moment which I laughed at, but I shouldn't have. Does anybody remember when Catalan were playing Wigan at the DW Stadium? And
yes.
And you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Oh, I know you're going to say.
The winner.
Justin Murphy.
Yeah, that's
Murphy,
the one.
That's it. When crashing over the barriers into the stand and catapult. I remember laughing, going, Pat, and then going, oh my God. And literally, it was one of those moments where, I don't know if you guys, it's like that ultimate guilt feeling of, what have I just laughed at? I don't know.
It's a human thing, though, isn't it? You see somebody get hurt or something bad happen to somebody, your natural reaction is to laugh. I don't know what it is about humans, but we do like to laugh at other people suffering.
It's too much you've been framed. Old Trafford's bad for that as well, because the pitch slopes off towards the edges. So if you're running to score a try at pace, you'll ground it and you'll keep sliding if the grass is wet down that bank into the ad boards.
Yeah, but he went full at it, managed to ground it, and then flipped over the ad boards and into the concrete steps, didn't he, on the other side? Yeah, crazy moment.
I'm sure he didn't get injured from it somewhere. I'm sure.
No, he got back on and went back on and played, didn't he?
Did he?
I think so, yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'd be wrong, but I'm sure he just got up and helped him over the boards and he was back on the field.
Back to playing for Glenn Catlin. Well, there we go. Now, gentlemen, this week, of course, we are doing the Loiners alphabet again. And, well, we've got two letters which I think could be quite intriguing. The letters I and J. Now, gentlemen, I, the letter in Rugby League. What have we thought of? Who have we thought of? And what situations have we thought of? We'll start with, I guess, this week.
Can't think of anything to say about him. Very quiet. Move on.
Is that what I'm going to say for Mr. Flat? Okay, that's fair enough. Any other letters, gentlemen? Any other words we can think of regarding the letter I?
Just to sort of segue from what you were talking about in terms of Justin Murphy, but on a different level, I went with injuries.
Okay.
But injuries in a different way where it just sort of makes you realise how tough the sport of rugby league is. Like when you look at, say, Matt Adamson, 2003 Champions final, damaging his cheekbone. I think for me, the most heroic performance in a final in most recent times I can think of is probably Sam Burgess smashing his face in, winning the NRL Grand Final for the Souths.
That first tackle, the impact. Yeah, that was just...
His face at the end. It would.
I don't like to talk about that too much.
Sorry, Johnny.
Sorry, Johnny.
I was there that night as well.
Oh, God. Of course, yeah, the infamous final that was, wasn't it? Yeah. Never mind.
Still blame Tony Williams for that loss.
Never mind.
I had injuries down as well, but it was more to Lord players who get injured and what they do with it. And I particularly had in mind Stevie Ward, who's had no luck whatsoever with injuries. Top bloke, great player, incredibly intelligent on the pitch. And he's had a really rotten run of luck, but he's used his time injured really wisely, you know, with his mentality, mental health, charity, and he's done a bit of acting as well, hasn't he? And it's a reminder to younger players that it's a really short career. It's a physical career. Injuries are part and parcel of it. You might be lucky and get away without a scratch. You might not be. But just have that backup plan. Enjoy your play. Be a great player if you can, but it's more important to be a better human. And I think Stevie Ward would be thinking of that.
And especially from his point of view, where he would be one of the best second rowers in the country if he could just string those games together. And for one reason or another, it's just not happening for him. So, like you said, it is a good lesson for the younger guys to have something backed up, have something there to progress yourself afterwards and make a difference in the sport.
I think Leeds as well, with the links that we've got with the university, they like lead the way as well. I think a few years ago we had Cine going to uni through Leeds. I think we had a few players, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so I think with Leeds they actively encourage, especially the younger lads, that they always need that backup plan. So whilst they're playing, they've always got the backup plan of, well, it's a short career, but you've got the option of going to college, going to university. You've got something to fall back on.
Well, if you think about it, most of these kids join Leeds at 15 years old, go through the academy system, don't do university. So their life is literally rugby league until they hit 30, 35 years old and they retire, but they've got nothing behind them. So, the whole university side of things, when being pushed into it, just gives them an outlet after the sport.
Not that I'm going to take the mick out of him. This is not meant in that in any way, shape or form. I'd love to see him acting. I don't know why. There's part of me thinking.
Did you not watch Neighbours a couple of years ago?
I don't recall. No, I didn't know. Did you? Have you just dropped yourself in this, Johnny?
No. You never went over and played Melbourne Storm?
Yeah.
There were a few of them, weren't there? Got a cameo in it, and I don't know. I don't watch the show, but somebody came on and says, "Oh, don't you guys play for the Leeds Rhinos?" Wasn't it Stevie Ward who did all the talking?
No,
you're right. I've seen that.
Oh, yeah, it was Stevie Ward's, Watkins, and I think Ryan Hall.
Ryan Hall, yeah, it was. Yeah. And Stevie Ward did all the talking, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that could be his future. He could be on Emmerdale in, say, 10 years. You never know, do you? I mean, it could be a really good career choice.
Emmerdale neighbours crossover, couldn't they?
That would be weird, but it could happen. That's going off track, isn't it? Let's be honest. But, they could have their Aussie shirts, we could have Leeds Rhinos. But anyway, talking of internationals things, I was internationals. Do we play enough internationals? It's a simple question that I can all see we're all going to agree on. No, we don't. What do you think to the international game? Is it dying on its backside? What would we need to do to improve it?
I would love to see more international rugby league. In my opinion, it's the only way to grow the game. And that possibly comes from me, because I work in rugby league, rugby union, football, cricket, hockey, loads of different sports. And I'm evangelical about rugby league. I love the sport and I'll talk to anyone about it. But as much as I try and convince them, the appeal of Widnes Warrington or Wakefield versus Castleford, as big a games as we know they are, they just don't appeal to anyone who's not in our little rugby league bubble. Whereas England, they can get behind. If it's England-France, they'd watch that game. It holds a lot more appeal. So I think the only way to grow the game and give it a real national appeal is through international rugby league. And I think we're years away from having a proper international calendar. Of course we are, because, you've got Australia and New Zealand streets ahead. You've got England, you've got the Pacific Islands, France, Wales, and all sorts who are quite a bit behind. So there's a lot of work needs to be done to bring everyone up to speed and give us a decent opposition. Us playing France every summer and beating them, was it 84-0, 84-4, something like that? We played them a couple of years ago. That's not going to be good for anyone. So we need to have decent international opposition. But in order to get the word about rugby league out, I think international rugby league's the only way. We had that World Cup back in 2013, and I know there's another one next year, but we managed to get 7,500 people to USA versus Cook Islands on a rainy Tuesday night in Bristol. It was brilliant. The atmosphere was fantastic. Nobody knew who anybody was in the crowd, but they all turned up and they all made a massive noise. We got 70,000 to those semi-finals at Wembley. We got 75 to the sellout final at Old Trafford. It was brilliant. And then we went nearly 2 years without any home internationals. So we built up all that momentum and then gave nobody an outlet to watch international rugby league. And you're not automatic, to somebody I work with down south, the idea of watching Wakefield Cass, and I'm sorry to use that as an example, holds the same appeal as watching Dunfermline versus Cowdenbeath in the Scottish football.
To be fair, to from Leeds, it doesn't really hold much appeal either, so...
Yeah. I would love to see more international rugby league and a proper international calendar.
But I think the problem you've got, I see two problems with it. First of all, the clubs have got too much say in international sport, in rugby league. Is it union? Is it centrally contracted? So if you get...
RFU, yeah.
Yeah, and they go out there, they can go anytime and go play overseas, or they've got the Six Nations, which is competitive over this side of the world. We don't have that. We've got, like you said, France, who are, as far as geography goes, the best and nearest competitors, and they're not in the same league as the Great Britain. Whereas down under, the Aussies can play New Zealand every year, and they've normally play each other twice a year. But then now you've got the emergence of Tonga and Samoa and Fiji, who are all playing very well, all better than what France are. And that develops a higher competition down there that people want to see. But without that competition, you're not going to get people coming to watch the game. And without the clubs allowing their players to go on a mid-season tour, say, to Australia or New Zealand, it just won't happen.
Just to slightly jump ahead, the World Cup next year, I mean, the marketing so far for this tournament, it's been superb. It's been so much, without sounding harsh to Super League and the RFL, so much better than any other competition that we've got up here at the minute. And you just think, I wish that amount of publicity and that quality publicity, I just wish we had that for Super League. I mean, it's an awkward one, and I get that we need to appeal the World Cup to everybody. But, I mean, for instance, the base location reveal videos with the little girl in it, that was genius. I mean, the fact they got so many local celebrities and people involved and they were all done remotely, obviously, because of COVID. It was brilliant, absolute marketing genius. And it's hopefully fingers crossed, it could be a really good World Cup, I think, hopefully.
We just need to capitalise on all that goodwill for the World Cup that will build up next year and make sure that people have an opportunity to watch rugby league that appeals to them once that World Cup's over.
Fingers crossed. You never know. It could be the make or break for, well, hopefully rugby league, and hopefully it's a good one. We'll see. Right, so we've covered I. Now moving into J. Now J is a very weird one. What have we come up with, boys? What have we thought of?
Well, I thought about this for a while and I couldn't think of much, so I had to go with a player, and it's a nickname. And again, I've spoke about him last week, but my favourite player from the last 15 years of the Bulldogs, James Graham, Jammer. I think he'll go down as the best prop of the last 20 years, British-wise anyway. And even when the Aussies talk about him, they talk about him in the highest of standards. He goes down as one of the best forwards to play over there in the NRL era.
Unbelievable talent. I mean, the fact he's almost reinvented playing prop back to almost, it sounds daft, he's almost brought it forward but backwards at the same time. He can pass the ball, move the ball around. He was almost like a forward half-back. It's amazing. Go on, Johnny.
Well, when he went over to the NRL, forwards there had gone back to the days where you just grab, you catch the ball, you run it as hard as you can, you make meters. He's gone in and, like you said, changed the game over there. And now you see most of their forwards, they're hitting the line hard, trying to get the offload out, trying to promote that second phase play. And it's something that he was a trailblazer in for that side of the world.
Very good talent, Pete. Would you, I'm going to say, how do you rate him? I mean, obviously you've watched many rugby games. Is he one of the best props you've seen play on the pitch?
I love him. I think he's fantastic. I'm surprised he went somewhere sunny, but it's really worked out for him. It's really worked out for him. I love him. I think he's tremendous, and I'm glad he's coming back. I think it'll be brilliant. He's got another year in him at least.
Yeah, you should say that about going somewhere sunny because, and I'm sorry about this, Loz, but there were a few years back we played Bradford on a nice early Easter fixture, and it was a 6 p.m. kickoff or 8 p.m. whatever it was. And there's me, Chris, and Loz walking up from Bradford City Centre towards the stadium. And bearing in mind it's March and it's 6 p.m. at night, Loz stops for a second. Next thing you know, he's getting his sun cream out. At 6 p.m. It's almost, the sun's going down at 6 p.m. in March, and Loz is getting the sun cream out so he can top it up just before we get to the stadium.
All I can say is better to be safe than sorry, and I'm sure James Graham also knows about being a ginger and having to
listen,
hide
Loz,
from the sun.
I'm with you. Same.
It's one of those things. You can't. Well, yeah. It's
so summer rugby's not for us, is it, Loz?
It's one of those things I've just got to get used to, and I have done. It's never mind. Thanks, Johnny.
All good.
Go on, Johnny.
No, I was just saying all good, Loz.
I had a J as well, if I can chuck one in, considering we've covered Junior Takeover Day already, but my J was another James, and that's the band James, who played the grand final for Saints Wigan 2014. And we'd gone through a few years of having, we had Madness, who were brilliant, loved Madness playing there, but then we sort of went off the rails a little bit, and we even had Diana Vickers playing once. Fantastic talent, I'm sure, but wasn't right. We had Bjorn again, the ABBA tribute act. And one year, I think just before we went back to basics with James, we even had a woman dangling from inflatable sphere. I think that must have been, 2013, 2012, something like that. And it just wasn't working for pre-match entertainment. And James came in for the 2014 Saints Wigan final, the Ben Flower final. And they were brilliant. Played a brilliant set. Their last song was Sit Down. And the entire stadium, 75,000, all singing along, Sit Down. You had the lead singer, Tim Booth, walking through the stands, walking through the crowd. And it was a moment. It was fantastic. And I've never... all the finals that Leeds have been to, and I've loved them all. But for me, that Wigan Saints final, the atmosphere when the players came out, and I think James had a huge part to do with that in setting the tone. The atmosphere was intense. The wall of noise that those players walked out to. You've got the natural Saints-Wigan rivalry anyway going on, but the atmosphere was brilliant. The players were obviously het up because we know what happened after 2 minutes. But a brilliant final and a brilliant atmosphere, and probably one of my all-time favourite grand finals. That.
Do you get nervous?
we've had some good bands. I remember, I think we had Madness one year as well, didn't we?
We did. We had Madness when we played Bradford back in fact, I got them to sign a programme for me, 2005. I booked them.
Do you get nervous, especially at the big events like the grand final?
I used to, but it's not so much nerves now. It's more an eagerness to make sure I do a good job and don't mess up in front of 75,000 people. I'm sort of comfortable with what I'm doing. I know I hopefully will do a decent job, but it's more a nervousness to make sure I do it right rather than nervousness about what I'm about to do.
I'm going to say, because I can't imagine. I mean, it's bad enough when we've been in the stands and you're waiting and you can feel, even when you're in the stands, your team's coming out, feel nervous. But for somebody who's like stood pitch side, I mean, it just must be that almost wow. You can't eat yourself.
I love it. I love being a part, and it's a small cog in everything that's going on, I know, but I just love being a part of those big events. It's I live for it, live for sport, and to be a part of those big events is incredible. Yeah, love it.
This may sound a really silly question, but what's the smallest sporting event you've ever been the announcer for?
Oh, I've done all sorts. From I announced the World Cup final 2013. I was involved this time last year at the Cricket World Cup final at Lords. I've done loads of big events. I was involved in the London 2012 games, but I've done, a women's rugby league game in Castleford in front of 100 people. Junior cricket. I've done all sorts, and it doesn't matter to me. It's just there's live sport going on, and we have to make it. All we're doing is window dressing the actual game itself.
Yeah.
But to be a part of it and hopefully put a polish on it, yeah, love it.
I suppose sometimes as well, a small event could be more nerve-wracking than a big event because it's more intimate, isn't it? More intimate.
Yeah, totally. If I'm at Old Trafford at a grand final, the crowd is kind of a big, colourful blur, and you can kind of all let it disappear into one. But you're right, with a couple of dozen people all staring in your face, that's even more intimidating.
How much? Sorry for asking all these industry sort of questions to you.
No,
how much preparation do you do for it? Do you have to? Do you do as much research and say what a commentator does? Do you just practice the names?
I imagine so, yeah. It's a case of certainly going through the squad lists in the week leading up to the game and make sure that there are no tricky pronunciations. But I'll always have a word with the coaches. If there's any I'm not sure of and I can't get off YouTube commentary because the commentators aren't always right, I will go and have a word with the bench, have a word with the coaches and say, look, how do you pronounce this correctly? Because you want to get it right and you want to be respectful to these players. And I think most will accept if you make a mistake, if it's done in good faith. But you can't go in without doing any homework at all.
Yeah.
Pete, I think most of the. I was just going to ask: is there any sort of sporting event, just anything across the world, where you've got it maybe on your bucket list, where you just wish that you could maybe take part in?
I've managed to take a load off, and there were two on my bucket list. One was to announce at the old Wembley, and obviously that's gone. But I feel like I've kind of made up with it by doing the new Wembley a ton of times. And I'd love to do a Liverpool game at Anfield, because my dad grew up in Anfield, took me along as a kid. That was my first love of sport. And the other one is the FA Cup. I'd love to do an FA Cup final. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But I've managed to tick a load of others off. England football, rugby union, rugby league, cricket, the Olympics, all these finals all over the country. I've loved being a part of it. But yeah, there's one or two on bucket list I'd love to do.
Well, it seems nowadays that whenever you turn the TV on, you can hear your voice in the background. So you can't be in too
Sorry about that, Johnny. Sorry, mate.
It's a friendly voice. That's the main thing, isn't it?
It's like now when you look back on the success that we've had, and I was watching a few old clips of us winning at Old Trafford, and you can always hear Pete's voice. It's almost like forever and a day now. The golden generation. You see Cine lifting that trophy, you'll then hear Pete. So
yeah.
It's always a nice voice to hear most of the times, like when we've left Wembley and Old Trafford.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Yeah. Well, I started at Rhinos in 2004, and I know we'd had 30 odd years of hurt leading up to this. And I'm not saying
so this is your
to me.
Yeah, this is your doing.
Me, but it is a little bit. But if I say that, I've then got to take responsibility for those seasons we were crap.
I'm going to say there's no such thing as a coincidence, is there? That's what you got to remember.
I mean, who are we going to blame for that then? Let's not even think about that, he says.
Yeah, I'll take the credit when it goes well, but none of the blame.
That's a good point. If there's been like a blowout at Headingley, say for instance, Leeds have been absolutely destroyed, how much does that hurt? Like if you're having to, say for instance, the team's been mullered, basically. Yeah. Say Leeds have, been destroyed by Castleford. Do you kind of in your heart think I've got to still provide the same, the same enthusiasm? Does that?
It's horrible.
It's a professional thing.
I feel it as much as the players do, as much as you do. I've been a part of this club for 16 years now, and I love the players, love the team, love the boys. It's brilliant, and it does hurt when we lose. So, but I know when the final whistle goes, I've still got to try and tell you when the next game is, and Gary wants me to sell tickets to that, and I still need to get you to buy your season tickets and go along to the long bar and pay 25 quid for your upgrade and all this, that and the other. There's a load of stuff that I need to get out and list off the sponsors because that's contractual and all of this, and I just don't want to. I just want to go sit in the bar and have a pint. We've got battered.
You announced that year where we were losing to St Helens 20-0 with 13 minutes left and managed to win the game, but we did 20-0 with 13 minutes left. I can't remember who it was, but the announcer, it was last game of the season, the announcer said about season tickets next year, and it was greeted with a massive chorus of boos.
Massive boom, yeah.
And then 13 minutes later, we'd run in 30 unanswered points and won the game. But
so yeah, I'll take the credit for that as well. I do remember early on, was it 2004? We played St Helens and mullered them 70-0,
wasn't it? Yeah.
That was a lot of fun because I kept dragging out the score. So it's Leeds Rhinos 60, St Helens 0. That was great. I enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, it's speaking of St Helens, we've had a few grand finals against them, obviously, and I've got to play the neutral. That's the trickiest, is trying to pretend to be neutral and sound as excited when Saints or Cass or Warrington or Wigan or whoever score against us as I do when Leeds score. So getting out of the habit of being all excitable at Headingley and then being neutral at Old Trafford is quite tricky. I
was going to say, you must be, your heart must drop if Leeds get to a final that you're covering. Because suddenly you really...
I love it, because if we're playing Saints, we're going to win.
I like that attitude. But yeah, it's kind of, I mean, personally, if I was doing that, I'd be like, oh, God, I've got to be neutral next week.
That's it. I can be as excited as I want when the microphone's not on, but when the mic's on, I've got to obviously play the professional very much a straight back. I think that the whole neutral aspect must be one of those toughest things in rugby league. It's weird. I can celebrate once the final whistle's gone and everyone's disappeared. Yeah. Trophies are gone, champagne's been popped, the streamers have gone off. Once all that's gone and the lights are turned off, I can celebrate then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this week.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
I haven't done my J yet.
Oh, sorry, my friend.
I'll try to just slightly get
Don't worry.
I'll just be very quick because it's kind of like a little bit of I just wanted to get it in because it's a bit of a tedious link and it kind of ties Pete in as well. So he introduces this. So basically, when we started the alphabet, I went with A, Abide With Me because of the Challenge Cup anthem. So with J, I went for Jerusalem for Old Trafford.
Good shout.
That's good. That's good, yeah.
Let's be honest, that is an anthem in itself. I mean,
it gives you chills. It gives you goosebumps when the teams are walking out to it.
That's it. They normally walk out on the crescendo of Jerusalem. Yeah. So you'll have Hayley Westenra or whoever it is singing Jerusalem, and it just gets that big crescendo, and it's such a tune, it's such an anthem. And then the players walk out, and it's fireworks and all sorts. The grand final is my favourite big event that we do of the year.
It's iconic, isn't it?
No way to escape in Old Trafford. It's always intense. It's brilliant, and that moment when the teams walk out, there's nothing like it in sport. I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, we feel it in the stands. So for you to be there in the thick of it and watching them come out, as you say, that crescendo, it must be something else for you.
It's great. I love it. Absolutely love it.
One thing that we don't celebrate enough in our sport is the grand final. It's the event that we should be really going, come along, watch this game, because there hasn't been a bad grand final, has there? I mean, let's be honest.
No, true.
No.
Think of a bad one now. I can think of a Challenge Cup final, 50-0. We're at 56-0. the Hull KR game. That was
Probably 5 tries.
yeah. I mean, that was boring after all. But yeah, if you think about it, grand final has never been a real one where it's been a bit of snooze, really. So, but that is one thing we do cherish. Right, anyway, that is it for this week's show. See, I've managed to do it okay there. Right, thanks very much for being our special guest this week, Pete. You are more than welcome on anytime you want to come back on. We shall get you on during the season. Chris, a pleasure as always. Thank you very much, young sir.
Thank you for having me.
And Johnny, very quickly before we finish, what's your NRL tip for this week? Who's you back?
Well, I reckon us beating the Broncos is a good bet this week because they're worse than us. They've not won since resumption. So I'm hoping, with Luke Thompson making his debut as well, that it can just give us that extra edge to get us over the line. Because it's not through lack of trying, we're just not good enough.
So everybody back Brisbane. That's the best one. Right. See you next week, guys. Have a great week and please stay safe. Thank you.